Hey everyone, welcome back to Science by Asha Matpal. In my today's session, I will be continuing with the class 10th chemistry chapter 1 chemical reaction and equation. In my last session, I have already taught you up to the topic redox reaction. So in my today's session, I will be taking up the last topic of this chapter, that is effect of oxidation reactions in our everyday life. But before I start my session, I would like to request you all to kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel and share its link among your friends and family. So let's begin today's session. Now, in the previous session, we have already understood that what is oxidation. Oxidation is simply a reaction where we see that there is addition of oxygen, and removal of hydrogen. Right. Now in our everyday life we see the oxidation reactions around us, and from that the two main reactions we are going to discuss today. The first one is the corrosion. Corrosion is simply a process where we see that metals, when react with atmospheric gases, they form certain products. Okay, now this whole thing that metals react with atmospheric gases and forming a product here is the corrosion reaction. Now what type of atmospheric gases? I'll try to explain here. Metal when combined with atmospheric gases can be, it can be oxygen, it can be carbon dioxide, it can be hydrogen sulfide, or it can be water vapor, simply water vapor. So water vapor is what? H2O. Okay, now when the metal combines with oxygen, it will form oxide, metal oxide, right? If it combines or if it reacts with carbon dioxide, it will form the carbonate. If it reacts with hydrogen sulfide, it will form the sulfide, the metal sulfide. All are metal sulfide. Whatever metal is here, its oxide will be there. So metal oxide, okay, metal carbonate, whatever metal is there. Okay, that is called as the corrosion reaction. Corrosion is simply a process where the metal react with any of the atmospheric gases and the water vapor, that is water, and they form the products like metal oxide, metal carbonate, or the metal sulfides. Okay, so basically corrosion is a process where we see that in the products generally oxide, carbonate, or sulfides are formed. A very common example of the corrosion reaction is rusting. Corrosion is called as rusting in the case of iron. In the case of iron, like in the previous topic corrosion, I have told you that when a metal reacts with atmospheric gases, okay, then it is called as corrosion, right? But this corrosion is called as rusting when the metal is iron and in the atmospheric gases it reacts with oxygen and water. Then this process is called as rusting. Rusting is simply a type of corrosion. Rusting is a word which is used with iron. That is why it is called as rusting there. So in the rusting, iron reacts with oxygen and the water vapor, or you can say moisture simply. And as a result of that, we see in the product that iron oxides are formed, like the ferric oxide is there. Ferric oxide is formed. Ferric oxide formula is Fe2O3 dot XH2O. Now what is X? X is the number of the water molecules here. So it can be of any number of water molecule. Remember, suppose this is a long rod of iron. If it is left as such in the open place, like it can be a garden, it can be a backyard, or as such in the house, then what will happen? With time, with time, iron surface will be attacked by the oxygen present in the atmosphere and also with the water vapor which are always there in the air. So they both will attack the iron, and suppose the top layer will get rusted first, and rusting always appears in the form of the dark brown layer. Dark brown layer of rust is there, and since it is in the form of the layers, so layer by layer, first this layer will go off, then it will expose the next lower layer of the iron, then it will go off. So in this way, slowly with time, the rusting causes the decay of the iron object or the iron part, whatever is there. Okay, so rusting is basically a very harmful process, and rusting word is used with the iron. The same thing is written here. Most common example of corrosion is rusting, that is the corrosion of iron. When iron articles remain exposed to moist air for a long time, its surface is covered with a brown flaky substance called rust. Rust is mainly hydrated ferric oxide. Hydrated means that it has got some water molecules to it. Fe2O3.xH2O. It is formed due to attack of oxygen gas and water vapors present in air on the surface of iron. So this is the balanced chemical equation. 2Fe3 solid state, S is solid, O2 is gas, XH2O, that is variable number of water molecules in the liquid state, will form Fe2O3.xH2O in the solid state. That is, this is the rust. This is the formula of rust, Fe2O3.xH2O. Right, now let's move towards the next type of the corrosion. Corrosion can be seen in the case of copper objects also. The copper objects, if you have any kind of copper utensil in the home, you must have observed, or you can ask your mothers also, that over to the copper articles, okay, we see a greenish kind of layer with times. Okay, so they acquire a green coating. Okay, this green coating is of the basic copper carbonate. So copper, when left exposed to the air, it reacts with the carbon dioxide, also with oxygen and the water vapor which are always there in the atmosphere around us, and they together form CuCO3 dot CuOH whole twice. So this is the basic copper carbonate. This is the basic copper carbonate, which is the product of the corrosion of copper. So generally the green layer which you see over to the copper articles, it can be any kind of spoon, glass, plate. Okay, that is because of the corrosion of the copper, and as a result of the corrosion of the copper, we see the formation of the basic copper carbonate there. Right, so corrosion occurs not only in iron where it is called as rusting, it is also seen in the case of the copper. Okay, so basically corrosion in most of the cases is a very harmful process. Why? Because as we have discussed earlier, that it eats the metal layer by layer. Okay, like in the case of iron, I have already told you that suppose this is the iron rod, then because of the corrosion, that is the rusting, this layer will first go off, because it will change into a very flaky brown substance, rust. So when it will go off, it will expose the lower layer, then again it will go off. So in this manner, this process keeps on um, like going on and on. This process goes on forever. It is a continuous process. So at the end of this process, we see that the whole metal is eaten away basically. So it damages any kind of thing which is made up of metal, especially in the case of the iron, like the bridges, the iron railings, or the automobile parts. Okay, so every year these parts need to be replaced with a new one. So it it is a very costly thing basically to purchase the new part every year. That is why this process should be checked, or we should take certain measures to delay the process of corrosion or rusting. Okay, so the corrosion of iron is a continuous process which ultimately eats up the whole object. So that is why we need to prevent rusting. Okay, so that it can at least delay this process in the case of the iron. Okay, because iron is one of the very strongest and the hard metal, and it is used widely in large number of places. So rusting of the iron can be prevented. The basic principle is that the iron surface should not be allowed to come in contact with the damp air. With the damp air. Why? Because this damp air means here oxygen and water vapor. So if we will not allow the iron to come in contact with the oxygen and the water vapor, there will be no rusting, right? Okay, so what we can do, suppose this is the iron rod or any kind of piece you can imagine, and if you will apply paint over to it, if you will apply paint to it, what will happen? This paint will create a layer. If you will apply paint on iron object, then what will happen? It will create a layer. Okay, now this layer will not allow, this layer will not allow oxygen and water vapor to touch the iron, right? In this way rusting can be easily prevented. Now if instead of the paint, if you will apply grease or even oil, then it will also create a layer or a barrier, okay, between the layer or a barrier between the iron and the atmospheric gas. Okay, that is oxygen as well as the water vapor, and thus again rusting can be prevented. Now what is galvanization? In the galvanization, a zinc coating is done on iron object. Okay, remember galvanization has a Z in it, Z, same is the zinc, Z. Okay, so you can remember from there that there is a coating of zinc which is applied over to the iron object. Now again concept is same. The zinc layer or the coating will create a layer. It will create a layer or a barrier between the iron and the atmospheric gases, that is the oxygen and the water vapor, and thus how the metal will not come in contact with the oxygen and the water, and there will be no rusting, right? Now let's move towards the next topic, that is the rancidity. Now rancidity is again a type of oxidation. Okay, it is a type of oxidation. Now this word is used when there is an oxidation of food items, when there is an oxidation of food items. Now see, sometimes what we have observed that there are certain food items which are very much oily, or they are deep fried, or there are food items which are having high fat in it, high amount of fat or the oil. If they are left open, or if they are left over for a longer time, then what will happen? Over to the food, the oxygen present in the atmosphere will react, and this will cause the oxidation. Now this oxidation is called as rancidity. And this rancidity produces certain substances which are volatile in nature. Volatile means they are gaseous in nature, and their smell is very bad. These gases smell very bad, so they emit very foul smell or a very bad smell basically. And it also changes the taste of the food, so the food smells bad and its taste is also bad. So this happens when the food gets oxidized. Generally the food which are having high content of the fat and the oil in them undergoes the process of oxidation quickly. Okay, so the same thing is written here. The oxidation of oils and fats in a food resulting in a bad smell and taste is called as rancidity. Right, so this is called as rancidity. But how we can prevent rancidity? That is how we can delay or we can prevent the oxidation of the food. We can do it by adding antioxidant. Antioxidants are certain chemicals which are when added to the food, when added to food items, it delays the process of oxidation or the rancidity. It delays the process of rancidity. Similarly, vacuum packing is also a method where we remove oxygen. When the food item is getting packed, we put it inside the packaging material and then we suck out the air from it. Okay, and that is called as a vacuum packing. The food is not having any oxygen, or the food packet is not having any oxygen inside it, and thus how the oxidation of the food can be prevented. Now sometimes we also do that while packing the food item, we add nitrogen and remove oxygen. Now this adding of the nitrogen also delays the process of rancidity or oxidation of food. And generally we see it in the case of the chips packet. The lot of air which you see inside the packet of the chips is actually the nitrogen gas, because nitrogen gas does not allow the oxidation of the food, and that is why it prevents the process of rancidity. Now refrigeration of the food stuff, you all know this is a very common practice in the home also, that whatever is left we put it inside the fridge, because inside the fridge there is a lower temperature, okay, which delays, this lower temperature delays rancidity. It does not stop this process, right, but it delays it for some time. Like if you have kept it in the night, you can eat it in the morning. Okay, not like that you are keeping it on Monday night and eating on Wednesday night. Okay, that is a very long time. Okay, and that kind of the food is itself not very good in the nutrient value also. So rancidity is a process simply where we see the oxidation of the food, and it can be delayed for some time by the following methods, like adding of the antioxidants, which are certain kind of the chemicals. We can also do the vacuum packing. A lot of the food items, especially dry fruit packets, you can see in the malls, they are vacuum packed. Then the chips is a very common example where we see that the food items are packed with the nitrogen content in them, and the refrigeration of the food stuff is a very common household practice which we all are observing every day in our day-to-day life. So with this I have finished with the chapter chemical reactions and equations. In my next session I will be doing a previous year's question and answer from this chapter, and till then, bye bye, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Bye bye.